For more on the prospect of when we might see the economy get restarted, I want to bring in now Sarah Sanders, former White House press secretary and now a Fox News contributor. Sarah, always great to see you. You know, at issue for many of those people from our previous reporting last hour, it is more than just whether or not they have the freedom to do what they want. They want to go back to work. You know, I mean, and I'm wondering, having been inside the White House, what kind of pressure do you think is on the president right now and his team to do this reopen?
Look, the president and his team, as well as governors across the country, are under a tremendous amount of pressure, not just to reopen the government, but also to protect American lives. I think the president said it very clearly that this would be one of the hardest decisions he has to make as president, is making that determination of how they best protect American lives, but also American livelihoods. And it's a very tough balancing act. I think the president is very smart to work with the nation's governors and provide states some flexibility, because what works in New York may not be what is best in Arkansas. And I think allowing governors to have some flexibility, working with them and determining what's best in each state, is going to be important moving forward.
Why do you think we went down the road of the president and a few of the governors, both coasts, west and east, trying to figure out who had the actual authority?
Look, because this is an unprecedented situation. This is a complicated process. And at the end of the day, everybody is trying to do the best they can to make sure, again, that they are protecting life and protecting American jobs. This is a tough balancing act, and I think that there's going to have to be a lot of cooperation. I think that's one of the reasons that people like myself and many others across the country are so disappointed in the liberal media that are attacking the president and trying to tear him down when he is doing everything within his power to make sure he's making the best decisions for the country. And he's done a great job in working with our country's governors to help provide them with the resources they need in order to make the best decisions they can for their states. This isn't a time to be attacking the president. This is a time we need to be praying for and supporting both our president, our governors, and our nurses and doctors that are doing all that they can to protect us.
Yeah, you know, you heard Governor Cuomo say it in the last few days that, you know, they have to stay focused at this point on what matters. And I wrote down what you said, lives and livelihoods, because that's really what it comes down to. One last question for you, Sarah, and it has to do with this sort of side-by-side advisory group. You've got the coronavirus task force, and the president has given us unprecedented access to him and that task force every afternoon around 5 or so Eastern. And then you have this other advisory group, which now is dozens and dozens and dozens of people. Might there have been any sort of effort, do you think, would it have been worth it to streamline that a bit?
Look, I think they're trying to take in as much information as possible. There are a lot of different stakeholders that are going to be impacted by the decision either to reopen or to delay opening government. They have to determine what is most essential, how that process is going to work, how we protect the most vulnerable in our society, how they phase in some of that reopening. And I don't think it's a bad thing to have information from as many people as possible. The president, look, I've watched this many times. He is masterful at taking in a tremendous amount of information from a number of different places and making a decision based on that information. That's what makes him a good executive. That's what makes him a good president, is that he has the ability to take in so much information and make a decision and move forward on it. And I think it's a good thing that he's taking the input from a number of different industry leaders, and some, frankly, that haven't been supportive of the president, and he's still bringing them into the conversation and making sure that their opinions and their voices are represented so he can make the best decision possible for the country.
And listening to you, one more question bubbled up, and I promise this will be it. You know, for the president to have given so much access, it has been a battle at times with media members who are socially distanced in front of him. And I'm wondering, you know, Ari Fleischer said this yesterday, I've had others tell me, might he want to have fewer of these, maybe 2 or 3 times a week, limit it to a certain amount of time? And how do you get out of those back and forth situations that appear to be so negative?
Look, this is the same group of people that after I had done more than 100 briefings in that very same room said it wasn't enough and constantly said we needed more access and more briefings. Now they have access to the President of the United States and they're complaining that it's too much. I don't think that you will ever make this group of people happy. I think it is great for the American people to have direct access from the person that is making the decisions as well as the people that are informing those decisions. The President isn't just going up there on his own. He's bringing in the experts that he's getting information from and allowing reporters to come in and ask questions of those people as well. People like Dr. Fauci, Dr. Birx, and others who are informing the president's decisions. I don't think it's a bad thing for the American people to have that type of transparency and that type of access, particularly during a time when there is so much uncertainty.
Yeah. I just wonder if you weren't standing there, you would maybe put a little bit of a pause on the fight, because it isn't helpful. Sarah, it is
I
always
agree
great
with
to have you
that,
on the
certainly.
program.
Yeah. Thanks, Sarah.
Right.
It's always good to be with you.
Thank you.